Finally tonight, the Mexican graves mystery, and to Ray Suarez.
After a week of searching, U.S. and Mexican authorities have found the remains of 6 bodies just south of the U.S.-Mexico border. They've combed 4 desert ranches, looking for as many as 200 people who've been missing. Some may be Americans. The search began after an FBI informant said the area contained bodies of people killed by drug lords. The 6 bodies are all men between the ages of 35 and 50. One had been shot in the head. The sites are between 10 and 20 miles south of Ciudad Juarez, which sits on the Rio Grande just across the border from El Paso, Texas. Last week, President Clinton commented on the discovery of the graves.
It's a horrible example, apparently, of the excesses of the drug dealing cartels in Mexico. And I think it reinforces the imperative of our not only trying to protect our border, but to work with the Mexican authorities to try to combat these. You know, we had a lot of success a few years ago in taking down a number of the Colombian drug cartels, and one of the adverse consequences of that was a lot of the operations were moved north into Mexico.
Just a few years ago, Juarez was the headquarters for one of Mexico's largest and most violent drug cartels. Law enforcement officials believe the Juarez cartel was responsible for shipping tons of Colombian cocaine and marijuana from Mexico to the United States. Its leader, Amado Carrillo Fuentes, was Mexico's #1 cocaine trafficker until his death 2 years ago following botched plastic surgery. It was suspected Carrillo was trying to change his appearance to evade police. 600 Mexican soldiers have secured the area as work goes on, unearthing bones and bits of clothing. An iron and concrete barrier topped with razor wire keeps reporters and others away from one ranch. Some of the soldiers wear ski masks to protect their identity from drug lords. A team of 65 FBI agents and forensic experts based in El Paso are assisting in the investigation. The remains will be sent to Washington for DNA testing. The appearance of such a large group of American officials on Mexican territory has stirred resentment there. On Thursday, the Mexican Congress voted to prevent President Ernesto Zedillo from going ahead with a planned visit to Washington. Mexico's Attorney General, Jorge Madrazo, and FBI Director Louis Freeh toured one of the ranches Friday. Both men denied that FBI participation infringed on Mexican sovereignty.
The FBI, when it makes such assistance here, of course, has no jurisdiction. We are neither carrying out any law enforcement functions or conducting any investigation under our own authority. We are here simply as partners, as invited guests, and in this case, technical experts.
At the site of the search in northern Mexico, authorities believe it could take months to unearth all the remains and identify the victims.
We're joined now from Mexico City by Mexico's Attorney General, Jorge Madrazo Cuellar, and by General Barry McCaffrey, Director of the Office of National Drug Control Policy. He joins us from the Eisenhower Executive Office Building in Washington. Barry McCaffrey, recently a former DEA official, has been quoted as saying Americans knew where the bodies were buried roughly since the early 90s and didn't go get them because some of the same agencies they had to work with were some of the people responsible for putting the bodies there. Your reaction?
Well, it's hard to imagine that. Look, there's an enormous threat to Mexico, violence and corruption. Thank God we've got Louis Freeh and the FBI, the Drug Enforcement Administration, the Border Patrol, federal agencies that are equipped and trained to do this kind of work. Attorney General Madrazo, who is now working with our own FBI, is trying to confront one of the major threats to Mexican national security. And that's going to involve partnership, and that's really what you're seeing in action right now.
So, Mr. Attorney General, is the size of the American delegation down there and the kind of assistance that they're giving to your own drug police a sign that that partnership is working?
I think that our relationship is working. It's actually really very good between the FBI and the PGR, the DEA and the PGR, the customs officials, and my office, the Attorney General institution. And I think that we have recovered a lot of confidence, and we are doing a very good job. And Ciudad Juarez is only one example. During this year of 1999, we have worked together in 4 major operations. Ciudad Juarez is the last one, but we work in the Millennium Operation, the Southwest Express Operation, in the impunity operation, and I think that the results are really very good.
Did you have to spend some time in negotiation before American officers were able to come over, setting ground rules for whether they would be armed, what sort of operations they would take part in?
We have been crossing information and intelligence along the last weeks in order to discover the precise points, the spots to dig on it. And I think that that weeks really was very important for the success of this operation.
General McCaffrey, last week the president said that what you see happening now in Mexico, cocaine loads growing dramatically, marijuana interdiction and shipments up, and the violence is all part of a spillover effect from Colombia, that efforts there on cracking down on drug gangs are starting to put too much heat on them, and that traffic is moving north. What do you think of that suggestion?
Well, you know, most Americans, when they talk about drugs, are referring to cocaine, and clearly more than half the cocaine in the world now is produced in Colombia, and the rest of it in two other Latin American nations, Bolivia and Peru. We are a giant engine sucking drugs through Mexico into the United States. We spend $57 billion a year on it. And that's really the source of the problem, and it generates enormous levels of violence and corruption on both sides of that border. There's two pieces we're working. One, we've got to cooperate with Mexico. There's 100 million of them. They're our second biggest trading partner. And they're also serious about this. The other piece of the action, though, the most important part of the national drug strategy is we have to reduce the number of Americans consuming these drugs. There's 4 million of us who are chronically addicted. That's the heart and soul of the problem.
And Attorney General Madrazo, what do you think about the president's suggestion that you're seeing a spillover from Colombia?
Well, it is not easy to understand what is going on in Colombia. But let me stress that in Mexico, during 1999, we have established very important records on seizures of marijuana and cocaine, the most important in history. More than 13,000 Mexicans are working every day on a daily basis in order to seal our territory, our land, our coast, and our airspace in order to diverse the cocaine shipments. We don't like the cocaine in Mexico, so we are working very hard with the Army and with the Navy, and of course cooperating very much with our U.S. partners.
Mr. Attorney General, General McCaffrey's remarks would reflect that he realizes that there's an American component to this problem, that it's America's hunger for the drug that's giving you the transshipment point status. Do you think that Mexicans in the streets of your cities, those reading your newspapers in the morning, understand that that at our highest levels maybe that's part of policy, but that Americans in the street don't realize how much our drug problem affects your country?
I think that we have an important understanding of what is happening with drug trafficking. I think that most Mexicans understand that we have to fight against consumption, but also against production and distribution of drugs. So this is an integral phenomenon, and we have to fight against all pieces of this phenomenon.
In many countries in the past that have become transshipment points like Mexico, a domestic drug problem has grown up where there sometimes wasn't one before. Are you seeing that in Mexico?
Yes, I think that we are suffering that problem in Mexico, and the cocaine problem is increasing, not at the level of the states, but we have some problems in major cities in the south border and also in north border on consumption of cocaine. So we have to tackle very quick that problem.
Barry McCaffrey, in the most recent round of certification, Mexico was certified as an operating partner of the United States in the war on drugs. But during those same hearings that resulted in the certification, the Chief of Operations of the DEA said there was still a lot of information, sensitive information, that he felt very uncomfortable sharing with his Mexican counterparts. What do you do about that? Has it improved?
Well, I mean, we've gone from literally no cooperation probably in the 1980s after this terrible situation in Mexico, the murder of Camarena, and then the subsequent abduction of a Mexican citizen. Today, the reality of it is the Coast Guard, U.S. Coast Guard, and the Mexican Navy do cooperate against drugs. There is a massive training cooperation going on. We do share intelligence. There's no question, as President Zedillo and Attorney General Madrazo will note, that there's a huge problem threatening Mexican democratic institutions. In my view, in our view, we're going to have to work as partners with Mexico respectfully and patiently in the coming 20 years to do something about it.
Well, they, south of the border, have instituted a new police force to take the place of some old structures. Can you tell the Attorney General tonight that you have greater confidence, that your DEA Chief of Ops remarks weren't necessarily reflective of the whole administration?
Yeah, well, I say, you know, look, we don't listen to what people say, we watch what they do. And what you're seeing right now happening on the ground in Mexico is Louis Freeh, thank God for the FBI, is cooperating fully with Mexican law enforcement authorities. We have no option. Look, if we're going to protect the two nations, we have to work patiently as partners against this enormous threat to both nations.
And Attorney General Madrazo, do you have something closer to a handle on the corruption that's been plaguing your police forces in recent years?
Yes, we are working very hard on cleaning the house. We have to provide results to our society, and simultaneously we have to dismiss all people who have misconducts or committing crimes in the police forces. Let me say that during the last 2 years, we have put 2,000 police officers out of the corporation, and we have presented criminal charges against 354 people. So I think that we have to clean the house, to clean the police force, and to provide results. And I think that we are succeeding step by step.
In your own press, Mr. Attorney General, you've been accused of compromising your country's sovereignties by allowing United States law enforcement officials to work on your soil. Our two countries have had a sometimes difficult history. How do you respond to your critics in Mexico?
I think that that opinions is proper of a democracy. So I have to respect the pluralism of opinions. But let me say that we have been working under the frame of the treaty that we have celebrated with the United States, the bilateral instruments, so every operation is accordance with law. And let me say that the FBI operation, the assistance that would have request to the FBI is only with an experts. No police of FBI is working on Mexico, only expert medical forensics and anthropological forensics.
And finally, Barry McCaffrey, with the seizures up, do we also have to assume that there are loads getting through, along with these huge loads of cocaine and marijuana that are being found?
Oh, there's no question. Look, Ray, we probably use 11 metric tons of heroin a year in the United States. We seize maybe a ton or two at best. We seize about 100 metric tons of cocaine, we meaning the world law enforcement authorities. It's almost impossible to end drug addiction in America by working on the interdiction piece. What you've got to do is work in cooperation with international authorities. There is a Vienna Convention to which we're all signatories. You've got to try and confront these international criminals wherever they are. We're doing that, not just on FBI Mexican police, but we're talking precursor chemical controls, money laundering, asset seizure, extraditions. Both nations now, Mexico and the U.S., are extraditing criminals to the other country. That's the first time in our history that's happened.
Barry McCaffrey, Attorney General Madrazo, good to talk to you both.
Thank you very much.